I want to close with a story I read this last week that really touched my heart. It comes from a seminary professor named Timothy Paul Jones. And when Timothy and his wife Rayanne adopted one of their daughters, they knew that she had been previously adopted by another family, but tragically, that adoption had been dissolved. And so it's already a very sad story. But then once they adopt her, they learn something else really bizarre. They learned that this family would, on occasion, make trips to Disney World, but when they did that, they would only take their biological children with them. This little girl would be left behind in the care of family or neighbors. And learning that, they wanted to kind of reverse that, and so they quickly made plans to bring this little girl to Disneyland with her. I mean, she was like a modern-day Cinderella, right? The way she'd been treated. And something interesting happened as the days approached. Her behavior began to become worse and worse as the date became closer. She would lie, she would steal, she would do everything she could to defy them. And eventually, Timothy sits her down, and before he can even say a word, she blurts out, she goes, "I know what you're doing. You're not going to bring me to Disney World, are you? You're going to leave me behind." And he said, the thought had never really occurred to him. What he was tempted to say in that moment, which is, well, I just might if you don't start behaving better. But instead of saying that, he says, "Is this trip something we're going to do as a family?" She nods, and tears start to well up in her eyes. And he says, "And are you a part of this family?" She nods, and he says, "Then you are going to Disney World." He goes, "Now, there may be some other consequences to remind you of the difference between right and wrong, but you are coming with us." Now, he hoped that conversation might bring about a reversal in her behavior, but it continued. In fact, during the drive down and the very first day at Disneyland, she was a total brat. Until that night in the hotel, he's tucking her into bed, and she looks up at him, and she says, "Daddy, I finally got to go to Disney World." And then she adds, "But it wasn't because I was good. It's because I'm yours." See, that's the gospel. You think God loves us because we're so lovable? I think we all know better than that. He loves you because he made you, because he chose you. He loved you so much that even it meant needing to become one of us. And not only that, but that he would be willing to live in the same world we live in and experience things we experience, and yet without sin. And then he would die on a cross, but not even death or sin or the grave could stop him. And if none of those things could stop him from loving us, do you think there's anything left that can? I mean, seriously?